I presume you're here in order to learn of Magecraft. I'll have you know, there's no room for the weak-willed in this course, and despite your best efforts, the sorcery of our time is but a fraction of what it once was in the Age of Gods. Much of the craft is established through pedigree, and the culture of mages is riddled with deception and moral depravity. That said, if you insist, I shall do my best to educate you in this miserable, yet fascinating world. In our previous lesson, I covered dragons, the pinnacle of phantasmal species. It is due to one of these dragons, Albion, that humanity has access to profound mystery, even in the modern era. Albion's remains, the spiritual tomb of Albion, is a critical asset to the Mages Association, literally serving as the foundation upon which the clock tower was built. Thus, today's lesson shall focus on Albion and the spiritual tomb, covering both its structure and influence. Albion, whose body comprises the spiritual tomb, was a dragon as old as the earth itself. Perhaps due to overconfidence, Albion chose to remain in reality, while most other phantasmal species migrated to the reverse side of the world. The age of man did not deter this mountain-sized behemoth, at least not at first. By the time Albion finally yearned for the reverse side, the pathway was no more. In a stubborn fit, the dragon decided to create its own path, relying on the mystery that still lurked beneath the Earth's surface. It dug deep underground, but died midway. Or rather, I should say its body died. One part, Albion's head, is still alive, continuing to gaze toward its destination. The rest of Albion became fused with the Earth to become a cavern, and tectonic movement transformed that cavern into a complex labyrinth. This process took centuries, long enough for mages to see a drastic decline in their performance. Our modern era is but a fraction of what it once was, at least when it comes to mana and mystery. Deep into the spiritual tomb, however, that prosperity still lingers. It remains an isolated ecosystem, flourishing with rare plants and creatures that have evolved independently from the surface. Many of these creatures have developed an ability to deflect mana, making them especially formidable. In addition, the tomb's tunnels are absolutely brimming with magical artifacts and talismans which can be salvaged. To capitalize on this symbolic goldmine, the Mages Association set up its headquarters, the clock tower, right atop the tomb. As you should know, however, the clock tower is far from a united front. Rather, it is a den of political conflict between warring factions. It stands to reason that these factions, and their respective families, all share a vested interest in the tomb's treasures. To prevent any one of these groups from monopolizing Albion, they instead agreed to establish a more neutral organization that would oversee and manage its excavations. This organization is the secret Autopsy Division, a strange part of the clock tower that maintains its independence. Their responsibility rests primarily in governing who can access the tomb. This means issuing permits to those allowed in and imprisoning those who happen to enter without permission. Attempting to subvert the division's authority brands mages as lawless smugglers. Beyond merely confiscating their salvage, the Autopsy Division denies smugglers access to the surface. In its uppermost layer, the tomb contains a mining city where criminals are forced to work for the opportunity to buy their way back to the surface. Despite this being a form of modern slavery, there are actually many mages who deliberately choose this way of life. The tomb presents an opportunity to young families and those suffering a decline in their magic circuits. Not only does the tomb compensate with ample mana in the air, tremendous profits can be made from excavating its lower levels. To accomplish this, mages in the tomb typically work in teams of 5, composed of excavators who dig out resources, a lookout/navigator, and fighters who can fend off hostile creatures. Residing in the mining city also places a political barrier between mages and the clock tower, making it ideal for those wanting to conceal themselves and lay low. There is a strange sense of unity between mages in the tomb that the clock tower lacks. Nevertheless, many mages still see this as a prison. The majority of contenders aren't even proper mages, but mere spellcasters with no aspiration for the route. Once they make it inside, either they wait to be released or pay up for an early freedom. These mages who get out are called survivors. They happen to include extremely rare cases in which mages escape the tomb, slipping past the Autopsy Division's careful guard. Officially, there are only 4 entrances to the tomb, which should make it easy to fortify. The entrance at their headquarters in Soho, for example, requires the aid of a special elevator just to reach it. So just how would a prisoner actually escape? Well, it's safe to describe the tomb as an intermediary between reality and the reverse side. It exists between 2 different textures simultaneously. As a result, Albion's physical coordinates aren't set in stone. Its precise location is an anomaly akin to the Wandering Sea or Bermuda Triangle. Effectively, the spiritual tomb is always in flux, behaving like quantum particles. This means that, occasionally, coordinates within the tomb wind up distorted, appearing as cracks above the surface. These cracks can be used as portals, allowing mages to traverse tens of kilometers in a single bound. Thus, while there are only 4 official entrances, there are actually many more emerging and vanishing over time. For mages able to predict and exploit these portals, smuggling from Albion becomes feasible. Technically, the clock tower does more than just rest atop Albion as a foundation. It actually extends beneath the surface, and it can be said that these lower floors constitute the tower's true form, housing many hidden libraries only available to the elite. The tomb proper doesn't start until 10 kilometers below the earth with Albion's tail. This is where the aforementioned mining city Magis Fair can be found. Complete with an artificial dome providing the illusion of a night and day cycle, the city houses its own isolated community of misfit mages. From here, mages either excavate the lower floors or conduct their own businesses, such as restaurants or marketplace stalls. Their buildings are constructed not from concrete, but dirt solidified through spells. This goes hand in hand with the creation of golems that conduct much of the city's manual labor. In the case of less aggressive species, mages have taken to riding on creatures captured within the tomb, mainly those with hard shells that resemble rhinos. Given the danger and casualties, it is normal for city vendors to sell mage organs. Intense fights break out in the streets, encouraging bystanders to keep a low profile. Yet, at the same time, these mages are all in the same situation together. There's less secrecy, allowing for various mage workshops to be combined into a larger facility known as the Composite Workshop Kriegula. Here, they mass-produce items such as concentrated spirit ore. The next 30 kilometers below the city comprise what's called the Great Magic Circuit, a cavernous ley line inhabited by magical beasts. Also called the Vein Corridor Ad Vena, this is where the bulk of excavations occur. Very few mages would want, or even be able to proceed deeper. From 40 to 60 kilometers deep, we have the Ancient Heart, which is quite literally the dug-out remains of Albion's heart. It may not beat like an actual heart, but the dense mana in this region pulses like its own form of heartbeat. At this depth is a natural bounded field that halted most of the dragon's body. Only its head proceeded deeper. Precisely because of this bounded field, the clock tower finds the Ancient Heart to be one of the most secure and private locations on the planet. Thus, they have chosen it as the site for their most intense discussions. The 12 lords, or their representatives, sometimes gather here in a surreal meeting room to hold what is called the Grand Roll, where the association's greatest decisions are made. One hot topic among these lords is whether or not to forcibly redevelop the tomb. With each passing year, the resources generated from Albion continue to decline. The Democratic faction believes that hollowing out the upper layers would allow for more rare and efficient salvages at a time when they're needed most. The aristocratic faction disagrees, instead insisting to hoard those limited resources among the elite. Even deeper, at the 60 to 80 kilometer range, is a facility called the Carillon Observatory. This is where Albion's head resides, detached from the rest of its body. The rich mana this deep in helps keep the dragon's head alive, and its eyes continue to stare further down. Astonishingly, this desperate stare has been able to dig even deeper, despite the dragon itself being unable to move. The Carillon Observatory is where sealing designations are decided, and where sealed mages are kept. Formally, humans have never proceeded beyond the 80-kilometer depth. This is because the following 400 kilometers constitute a domain only fairies can traverse. Had Albion been able to keep digging, it would have reached the reverse side, specifically the Utopia of Avalon, at a staggering depth of 2,700 kilometers below the surface. Despite what I just said, there is one case where a mage has unintentionally breached the domain of fairies. Within the Great Magic Circuit is a shortcut called the Pit of Oblivion. It is a singular tunnel that dives straight down to the Ancient Heart and beyond. Even though this is a shortcut, it's not a portal, and the free fall to the bottom takes hours, even with the aid of mystic codes such as Icarus wings that allow for accelerated diving. The true potential of this pit was discovered when Dr. Heartless, a mage originally named Kuro Adashino, was pushed in by his own excavation team. He fell straight to the land of fairies, who proceeded to take his heart in exchange for power. Almost like a gatekeeper to this fairy domain, a six-eyed phantasmal monster rests at the bottom of the pit. Ominously named the ruler of Albion, this creature surpasses human comprehension. It is thought that Dr. Heartless reached the fairies after being swallowed by this beast. In summation, the spiritual tomb of Albion is a labyrinth beneath the earth where mystery from the Age of Gods still thrives. Coveting its resources, the Mages Association built the clock tower above the tomb and allows the secret Autopsy division to manage its excavation. Many mages find themselves entering the tomb without permission, and as a result, are forced to live as slaves at the mining city Magis Fair. In rare cases, mages have been able to bypass the Autopsy division and smuggle rare artifacts from the tomb. The clock tower uses Albion's heart to host their grand rolls. Even deeper in leads to the domain of fairies, and even Avalon itself. Perhaps you've noticed that, of all the layers, I've intentionally avoided the Carillon Observatory. This is because, for our next lesson, I will be covering it in greater detail in conjunction with ceiling designations. Ironically, for as much as the association aims to promote mages, it has a system that essentially punishes them for their profound abilities. Thanks for watching.
If you enjoy this channel, help us grow by liking, commenting, sharing the video, subscribing to Otaku Daikun, and
most of all, smashing that notification bell so you don't miss out on all our anime lore, discussions, and Let's Play content.
You can support us directly through Patreon, Subscribestar, or a YouTube membership, all of which come with benefits like spicy exclusive vids and early access.
As always, celebrate your fandom. I want to give a special shout out to all my $10 and up supporters: VideoGamer75, Dante Pendragon, Stephen Elak, Samuel Gersten, The Nonchalant Ostrich, Otaku Mom, Jens Bauman, Mystic Samurai 1983, Lord Omagoden, Freebrick, Olympian Doll, Alexis Yukio Gomez Yamato, Link Pendrago, Observer Bellis, James Hewitt, Uncanny EXP, King Kobo, Scout, Andre Foster, Jared Kraus, Zamas Autonomous, Yukie Eros, Crow Kalem, Saul Soto, Sogai CH, Caitlin P, Vladimirovna, The Taz 96, Kengo X 77, Alester Bernadotte, Mickey D 343, and Akakaze Yume. Thank you all so much.